We are going to be walking through how you can use the EC2 free tier in AWS to host your own language models. And this is really challenging because on the free tier, you only get 1 GB of RAM and one virtual CPU, but there are some tricks we can do to make this work. And just to show you the performance of this thing, I'm going to use Ollama on my T2 micro instance right now, and we're going to ask it some questions like, what is the capital of France? And we can see that it's pretty quick. We can ask it stuff like solve a Fibonacci problem with JS using memoization. And we can see that it gives us a nice response too. And so it's very impressive. I personally am really happy with the performance. And so I'll walk you guys through all the steps involved here. And in future videos, we can also jump into how we could host this so we could call it from other machines if we wanted to not have such a monolith for web apps and stuff like that. But so yeah, we'll jump into it, so stay tuned. So I'm just gonna press Control C here to cancel this. And then I'm going to go to my EC2 instance details right here, and I'm going to basically terminate my instance, and we're going to terminate it. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a new instance, and the instance that we're going to be going with, I'm going to give this a name. We'll call it Ollama Dev. I like Ubuntu, and we're going to keep everything here on the free tier. So we're going to do the free tier eligible stuff. And then T2 micro, again, free tier eligible. There's no other instance types that are free tier at this point. So 1 gig of memory is going to really hurt us, but we'll make it work. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to use an existing key pair that I have, but you could create your own if you don't have one already. I'm not going to be using it because we're just going to use the EC2 instance connect anyways. We're going to be putting this into our VPC. We're going to be creating a security group for this thing. And aside from that, I'm just going to leave everything else. Something else you do want to change though is the amount of storage here. So these language models can get quite big. And so depending on what type of language model you download, you're going to need several gigabytes. So I'm just going to go with the max 30 gigs because that's what we can do on the free tier. No, you're going to be able to do this once because that'll be it. If you do anything more than that, you're going to have to pay for it. And so aside from that, we're just going to launch this instance. I'm going to give it a moment for everything to come up online. So I'm going to go back to my instances page and we'll refresh. So we've got our instance right here. So I'm going to go to the connect page, and then we're going to just use the basic EC2 instance connect. And here we are. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to be installing Ollama to actually run our models that we're downloading. And so to do that, I'll provide all these commands if people are interested, but we're just running a wget to download the install file. And then we're going to run that install file. So it's finished installing the Ollama agent locally on our EC2 instance. You can verify by just running Ollama like that, so we can see that it's here. We can also see if there are any models present by just typing in Ollama list. So nothing's been downloaded yet, so we're gonna have to pull something. And so this is where you're gonna have to do a bit of homework, but I've already done this part. So right now, Ollama, if you go to ollama.com/library, they tell you all the models that you can download. And so given that we have very little resources to work with on the free tier, we're gonna want to get stuff that is ideally less than 1 billion parameters. So these 90B, 11B, that's telling you how big the models are here. And so the more parameters, the more memory that it's going to use to actually run. And so there's no way you're ever going to run a 3 billion size model with the T2 micro that we have. And so after looking through this, there are 0.5 billion parameter models out there. And so what I did is I tested a couple of them. And each one has slightly different memory requirements, but the one that I had the most luck with, and you guys again can play around with this more, is this Quen model. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But basically, if I go here and I pull it, you can see that it's a ridiculously small size. It's only 352 megabytes. So once this thing finishes downloading, we're going to then try to actually run it, and then we're going to run into our next problem. So we'll just give this thing a moment. So it's finished pulling the model. Now, if we wanted to actually run that model, it's literally the same command, but you just, instead of pull, you do run. And you can see that it's giving us an error right now saying that to run this model, we need 843 megabytes of memory, but we only have 618 free right now. And these numbers fluctuate a little bit. Like if I was to try this again, you can see that like there's a little variance, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to make this run as is. So to work around this, what we're going to do is we're going to be doing a swap file. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to tell our EC2 instance to allocate some of the EBS volume for memory. So we're going to take 1 gigabyte of the EBS volume, and we're going to treat that as our RAM. And it's not as performant as the RAM, but it at least lets you get past this barrier. So to do that, we're going to be running the following commands, and I'll again share these. But this first one, what it's doing is it's allocating that EBS volume, specifically 1 gigabyte of it, into a file, specifically the swap file. And now this next command right here, we're going to be modifying the permissions on this swap file so that only the root user can read and write to it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to initialize the swap file, and then finally we're going to allocate this swap file, or activate it, sorry. And then finally what we do is we show with this command that our swap file is on. So now what we can do is if we go up to our previous command where we tried to run this model, now it actually loads the model for us because we're able to use that gigabyte of EBS volume as memory for running this model. So that's how we do that little workaround to keep this all in the free tier. And so next what we can do is start asking this model some questions like, you know, I have some reasoning things here that I would personally struggle with, but we'll see. But yeah, so you can start playing around with it. And again, I'm very impressed here by how quickly this is, especially compared to my Mac, but I haven't played around with it too much. But again, you know, basic questions, capital of Japan, you know, you can just get very nice, clean, human-like responses from your questions. PyScript to solve FizzBuzz. Can you write a JS script to solve FizzBuzz? But yeah, so again, you can start playing with this thing, and to stop it, you just Control-C, and if you wanted to, you know, just ask anything like you would to ChatGPT, you can, and now you're doing this all on the EC2 free tier. So that is how you can get up and running with this thing.